What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host, Dave Martinson. Dave, how you doing, man?
You know, man, we watched the Emmys last night. Live programming, very rare these days. But I think overall, we did pretty well in our predictions last week. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, and if you didn't check out those predictions, we would suggest going to our YouTube page, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Is it just Nowstalgia?
Nowstalgia Pod, you got it.
Nowstalgia Pad. And give that a listen, because we laid out all the different scenarios that we thought might go down, including Fleabag coming through as the big winner in the comedy categories last night. Phoebe Waller-Bridge winning the writing award, as you predicted, and then also winning the Best Actress and Best Comedy award, taking down Julia Louis-Dreyfus for Veep, and Veep in obviously the main category.
Right.
I think a lot of people were surprised, but I mean, Fleabag, the attention it's gotten critically has been trending towards it getting some sort of acclaim, which is why we came to the conclusion that if anything was going to take Veep down, it had to be this. How did you feel about Fleabag getting those awards, and maybe some other thoughts about the comedy category?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I feel great because we both love the show, and it's actually nice to see the best piece of art actually win in the moment. We talk, no matter what award show it is, that often is not the case, or things are rewarded years later, seasons later. We've gotten into this before, but the fact that Fleabag is actually here in its second season and then wins so big is awesome to see it, especially considering there might not be much more Fleabag, if any. I know early on with Tony Shalhoub and Alex Borstein both winning again for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, or Shalhoub winning, I think, his fourth Emmy overall. Early bellwether. Oh, is Maisel going to win Best Comedy once again? It turned out not to be true because, Fleabag started winning all the down ballot stuff. And I mean, Julia Louis-Dreyfus not winning, I honestly was quite surprised. Just because she had won for all 6 seasons of Veep thus far. If she had won this one last final acting win, she'd be the sole leader in acting Emmys with 9. Obviously, she didn't. That was not the case, and it was kind of funny. I mean, the reception in the room was a little quieted or exasperated, you know? Mm-hmm. That's despite the fact that everyone's pro Fleabag and loves Fleabag, Phoebe Waller-Bridge and all that. So definitely didn't see it coming, but I'm obviously happy about the development. Veep and JLD don't need any extra adulation. As we know, they're fine. Those spots in the Hall of Fame are written in stone already, so it's all good to spread it around.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear, I think, Phoebe's excitement and her surprise as well. I think she probably expected Veep to take it home, but she's just a delight every time she talks, and is like, she's so genuine, and just the way she goes about things she's incredibly charming, I find. And I've come so far on her from where I fell on her with Solo, where I felt her voice work as the robot I didn't really love, and now I'm just like a huge Phoebe Waller stan over here.
Right.
But yeah, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she'll get that acting Emmy at some point. I have no doubt. I don't think Veep is the last thing she'll do. I'd be incredibly surprised.
I don't think so. She's not that old.
No. I was really pleasantly surprised by a lot of the winners last night. And there were a lot of moments, you know. One that really stood out for me was Jarrell Jerome winning for When They See Us. And the room and the excitement and the support in the room was just really overwhelming and awesome to see. And that felt just like a great award show moment to see this young person in this very powerful piece of art being recognized, and upsetting some very prodigious people in the category as well.
Sure.
So how did you feel about that moment? Any thoughts?
Yeah, that was great. Didn't know or didn't think of the Central Park Five, the exonerated five guys actually being there in the front. You could tell they were really emotional about it. That's awesome. And yeah, well, I expected when they see us to actually even do bigger and beat out Chernobyl. That was not the case, but I did feel like the Jerome moment was coming, and I think that was great. Again, spreading it around a little bit, and Netflix does not have the lead series Emmy win still, but I think they couldn't be happier with how When They See Us has done up to this point. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and then Billy Porter wins Best Actor in a Drama Series for Pose.
Yep.
Becoming not only the first openly gay black man to be nominated, but then to win.
Right.
Pretty awesome moment. Also had a very, I was going to say awesome. I don't think that's the right word. Very cool hat. Reminded me a bit of a gravy boat, but I was digging it. I saw
Cam
a funny, I saw a funny tweet that said you wouldn't want to be sitting behind his left shoulder for this, which is definitely true. He had a really great speech. I really liked Patricia Arquette's speech as well, talking about transgender rights, and Michelle Williams. I thought it was another great winning for Best Actress in a Limited Series for her portrayal of Gwen Verdon. A lot of really, really cool wins. What else stood out to you, or what did you take away?
Yeah, it's funny because, again, Arquette had won for Dannemora the past few years at the other award shows, but then she actually won for The Act instead, so Michelle Williams actually would win for lead actress in limited series. So yeah, Michelle Williams definitely prepared to talk about equal pay, something that she's kind of been at the center at the past 2 or 3 years, and I think that was great and nice. Can kind of cap on, I think, the overall message of the show Fosse Verdon and how it was highlighting Gwen Verdon and the shine that she deserved and didn't actually get in the moment. So this is, I think, a nice bookend to that. I think we had really kind of called most of those. I mean, like some of them, like Bill Hader, cool, like to see that. Yeah. But Patricia Clarkson did not win because of Arquette with The Act. That was a little surprising to me. And then Peter Dinklage wins for Thrones. Thought that was pretty safe, as we said last week. And with Julia Garner from Ozark beating out the rest of the Thrones ladies, Dinklage goes down as the only Thrones regular to win an acting Emmy, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think they were a bit of eating their own kind with how many would be nominated in the categories, but they did get the big award at the end of the night, which predictable, a bit of, for an awards night where there were so many really welcome surprises. Thrones, I think, was deserving for the whole of the show, but probably not for this particular season in general, especially because they the episode that they nominated for most of the awards was the finale. And,
right. Not Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which they should have picked.
Right. By far. And Steppenwall actually had a great tweet about that, how he thinks that could have actually impacted the writing in a drama series category if they had. But regardless, I just also wanted to shout out Jodie Comer.
Man.
We talked about how it's probably going to be Sandra Oh if anyone from Killing Eve won, but now that people recognize her work, and rightfully so,
right.
we can't say enough about her.
And then Jesse Armstrong won for comedy writing with or drama writing with Succession.
Yeah,
which is I think a nice bellwether for Succession season 2 come next Emmys with Thrones gone. You figure the big contenders next year would be Thrones, Stranger Things season 3, Handmaid's Tale season 3 with Succession. So
not Thrones though.
Oh, sorry. Stranger Things, Handmaid's Tale, Succession. That's probably the big three moving forward. But yeah, Succession, man. And then getting the moment with Nick Braun, Alan Ruck, Sarah Snook, and Jeremy Strong all kind of getting hyped and looking like they were very in character for that win. And another cool little moment.
Yeah. I have no doubt Succession's going to come on strong next year at the Emmys. Now that Thrones is out of the way. And it's kind of crazy to think about. We probably know, without any surprises, the top contenders for comedy as well are going to be Maisel and Barry. Those are probably going to be the top two. Maybe another one will sneak in there. Maybe we get another Natasha Lyonne and Russian Doll back, but that didn't get
it's
much
interesting.
love.
Yeah, because we assume Fleabag won't be back in time for next Emmys, and Good Place is ending, Veep is ended. Schitt's Creek could return, and Russian Doll, if that turnaround is quick. It was renewed, so so there could be some room for some new blood in comedy. That's cool.
So a lot to look forward to. TV just continues to be an amazing medium, and the streaming wars definitely will play a part into that too, but that'll be something to talk about later. The streaming wars, though, continue to move forward, and the latest, Peacock. Thoughts on the name first, Dave. Peacock. NBC's newest streaming service that's going to be competing with the likes of Disney Plus. Is it Apple Plus? Is that what it's called?
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus. And now Peacock joining the fray, along with obviously CPS. Is that All Access?
Yeah.
I can't keep track of all these. Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Peacock. Give me your thoughts.
Well,
good name.
The name is something. I think Sepinwall had an interesting note that Amazon is actually really called Prime Video. That's the name of the streaming service, but everyone just calls it Amazon or Amazon Prime. Will people just call it as NBC Universal? I don't know. Peacock. I mean, there's various nicknames you could assign to Peacock, both clean and not. So at least it's eye raising like a Hulu or something, right? And not as super monotonous as a something plus TV plus, right? But we finally got the info on this service. We knew the NBC Universal streaming service was coming. Now we know it's looking to be available around April of next year, leading in with the Olympics, which is a nice, I think, advertising platform just to really make people aware of this, because people like me and you who are online understand this and see the news, right? But if you're not on Twitter and don't check trending topics, you might just totally miss these announcements to know this thing exists, and you might actually need to rely on a commercial in 6 months to actually tell you that there's a new thing you can pay for. But to be honest, now that we actually know what's in this, and frankly we know a lot more about Peacock than we do about Apple TV Plus, I think it is a solid slate of stuff, both new and old, and we don't actually know the price yet, but I think it's one of the better values as far as streaming options are, given the backlog of existing IP that it has. What did you think about the slate?
Well, so the slate is interesting. It's going to have exclusive rights to Parks and Rec and The Office, two of the biggest comfort TV streaming properties that are out there, along with Seinfeld, which will be joining Netflix in 2021, and
Friends is on HBO.
Friends, right? So that's intriguing. They also have 30 Rock, Downton Abbey, which we're not going to be talking about today, but obviously has a big fan base.
Yeah, it's really a stacked set of back shows.
Yeah,
along these lines: Cheers, Frasier, Will and Grace, Psych, the whole SNL library, Friday Night Lights.
Yep.
I mean, these are popular shows.
Yeah. To be honest, though, what probably intrigues me most is some of the reboots, and not necessarily in a good way. They're going to be rebooting Saved by the Bell, The Office, Battlestar Galactica, and Punky Brewster, which, first of all, who gives a shit about Punky Brewster in 2019? I don't know.
IP.
Yeah. Battlestar Galactica out of those three is the one that I am most excited for, only because Sam Esmail's attached to it at this point. And right now, I'd probably trust Sam Esmail with my life.
Indeed.
Waiting for Robot Season 4, then also Watchmen dropping. It's Esmail season's approaching. Saved by the Bell.
He's not involved in Watchmen, is he? You mean Homecoming?
Homecoming, yes. I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry. Saved by the Bell could not care less about, especially because the what's been thrown out there about it is that Zach Morris is now the mayor and is shutting down schools and forcing underserved schools, people from them to go to the better schools.
Interesting.
To, throw people together. Don't care. So then it comes to The Office, which why remake The Office? You have the exclusive rights. You don't need to remake The Office. It's the type of thing that needs to either be really, really good, or even if it's just okay, people are still going to shit all over it. So it just feels like a no-win move for them.
Yeah, I think from a quality perspective, a satisfying a fan's perspective, it's probably a low chance for success. But I think saying we have the new Office reboot, and the only way to watch that is to subscribe to Peacock, is really all they care about. Because then when you subscribe, you're like, damn, this was disappointing. Oh, wait, all these other shows I already watched but really like are on here. Maybe I'll keep paying. I think that's their whole calculus. Because a new Battlestar Galactica show with Sam, which is just a new take, not a sequel or anything, that's not going to get people to sign up for stuff. That's just one thing. You know, it's like the Apple TV Plus slate. A lot of that stuff sounds interesting, but depends about what everything else you have is. And all those shows we mentioned, I think, have been, I think we know they've been dominant on streaming, whether they're on Netflix, Hulu, wherever they previously lived. And I think what's interesting, though, at Peacock is a lot of those shows we mentioned, not all of them will be exclusive to Peacock. And a lot of those shows have TV syndication. That's not just going to end like at the drop of a hat. So I really think it has to be about the overall library and using something as headline grabbing as an Office reboot, which we know would be Sans, Carell, and Krasinski, and everyone else, of course. Just having that as something you can tell people to watch, check it out. I think that's kind of their calculus there. I mean, they'll also have the Universal library, so you have Fast and Furious and Jurassic Park, again, two massively populous, film franchises to add to the pile. So it's the price, I think, is interesting. It'll probably be, I think, like an Amazon HBO range. That's the idea. I think you also can get it bundled with cable. That was the talk. We don't know yet, but definitely on my eye on Peacock. Now, I personally don't plan to subscribe because, again, I'm ascribing all the value to old things. And I think the key thing will be, though, is we know how popular all these shows will be. Now, will maintaining access to these shows by paying something else actually matter? Or will the people that have watched these shows just kind of had them on in the background? Will they just find something new on Netflix or Prime to watch instead? You know what I mean? Like when the convenience is removed to rewatch all these classics, will you go out of your way to rewatch something, or you find something else instead on the old sites? Yeah, that's really the key thing. We gotta just see how it happens.
It's a good point. Where are you at in terms of that tipping point with subscribing to these streaming services? Like, what are you definitely going to get? Disney Plus, obviously, Netflix,
and
Hulu, HBO.
Yeah. Hulu, I don't believe is essential at all.
But it's packaged with so many things.
You can get the package with ESPN Plus and Disney Plus, as we know, but Hulu just doesn't have the breadth of originals, and we still don't really know what Disney's true plan for what differentiates Hulu from Disney Plus is. Like we know it's going to be more adult things, but we don't really know anything concrete yet. So what Hulu becomes, I think, is still TBD. And Amazon, as we've said before, doesn't really matter in the calculus because people don't pay for Amazon to have Prime Video. Prime Video is just a tacked on perk.
Yeah.
Because people buy stuff on Amazon. So that one doesn't really count either.
Right. So it's pretty much Netflix, HBO, and Disney Plus for you.
Correct.
Yeah. This didn't really move the needle too much for me. So Peacock, probably not something we'll be talking about too much unless that price is just right and the shows are worth it.
We'll watch the Sam show, of course, but that has to come out first. Ways away.
Life Finds a Way, a Universal property that will be on Peacock. But why don't we talk about somebody else who seems to be finding their way in a different sense? Ameer Vann dropping a surprise EP, Emmanuel.
Yep.
Give us a little bit of background on Ameer, since you're the Brockhampton expert on this show.
Yeah, so Ameer just dropped a 6-track, 16-minute EP. As you said, this is his first new music release since he was expelled from Brockhampton in May of 2018 following various emotional and sexual abuse charges from various women he had dated or known in the past. And as we've talked about before with our discussions of Brockhampton's recent work, the fracturing that his departure from the group caused for the band definitely influenced the sound and lyrical content and overall, I think, just attitude of the band on Iridescence and Ginger, the last 2 records, which we both reviewed. Check those out, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. But Ameer has always kind of been the thing where we didn't know anything about him. Basically went dark on social media after this, and there hasn't been any criminal investigations or actual charges levied. And while Ameer did deny any criminal wrongdoing, he did accept that he had been emotionally abusive and had not acted in the right way. And then recently, of course, with Ginger, Don McLennan on the song Dearly Departed lets out that apparently Ameer had perhaps set up one of his friends to be robbed. And obviously we knew that there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes with Ameer and the band, and it wasn't solely the allegations that separated them. But either way, now he's back with some new music. Notably, I stood out to me was this was released, check on Spotify, it says it's under Winston Wolfe LLC. Winston Wolfe, of course, is Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction, a fixer, makes things go away. This is not on RCA, so Ameer, who was part of that RCA record deal Brockhampton signed, clearly as a solo act is not part of that label, or thus that getting that money that way. But we have music, and I mean, I always was going to check it out. Regardless, I think it's okay to listen to stuff like this, even if you have a problem with the artist. You know, it is complicated, though, and I wouldn't begrudge anyone who decides they don't want to listen to it at all, given the charges that Ameer's has levied against him. You know, so I mean, I feel you can take that either way. It's really up to you. There's I think no shame either way. But Ameer, you know, was someone who I did enjoy on the Saturation trilogy with Brockhampton. He's the face of those albums, literally on the covers. But his natural talent as I think the best pure rapper of the group was pretty evident. He also had has a dark, gruff voice and just a low register that was a nice contrast to a lot of his other bandmates. Now that we have him just being solo again, that darkness is certainly present, and obviously we know why. But what did you think of the actual music? Again, it's only 6 tracks. It's pretty quick stuff, but I think there's a fair amount here, to be honest.
Yeah, it grabs you immediately, and it's a sparse, stripped-down track. The title of the EP, Emmanuel, and it's just Ameer talking about his emotional and psychological experience since everything's gone down. Talking about having suicidal thoughts, questioning every relationship in his life. And it's pretty much just him over this really almost like the Life of Pablo sounding thumping beat. It actually reminded me of the drums from Wolves a little bit. You know how like kind of like I'm gonna fix Wolves. Like you strip down the extra stuff, just like dong dong dong. It was really captivating. And from there, I mean, it just kind of it kind of keeps that like thumpiness to it, but just kind of puts some more gloss over it. And I really thought most of these tracks were really good. I really can't pick one that I was like, that's not really a quality track. And I found myself more questioning, like the idea of like cancel culture with this sort of thing. You know, I've been thinking about it a lot as a Patriots fan with Antonio Brown and all the allegations taken against him, and how it's a civil suit and not a legal suit and things like that, and or a criminal suit, I should say. And it's problematic in a sense to back these people, but at the same time, when it's allegations and people make mistakes, but then they are human too. Like, where is that line of redemption, and when do we give people grace and the opportunity to have redemption? It was kind of what I was left with after this album. the music I think is great. What did you like about the music, and then maybe give me some thoughts on Cancel.
Yeah. So there is a bit of a barb at Brockhampton on here on Sunday night. He says a hit is supposed to stick up for their family, but we see they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on the track list on Los Angeles, what does he say about losing his friends to LA?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
That one seemed like the most Brockhampton shot of all.
Right. And I think a lot of people have taken a little bit of an issue with, is Ameer truly grappling with what he's done? Because I think more people would be open to him returning to music. Again, he's like a 22-year-old kid who hasn't actually been charged with anything.
Mm-hmm.
What does he deserve or not? Whatever that may be. If you own up, and again, he's owned up to a certain extent, but I don't know, blaming it on LA, I mean, I think a lot of people want to hear him just truly use a lot of I statements. Like, I did this was wrong, I'm sorry, all that. And maybe he doesn't fully get there on this, but what he does get there is he does show you what a dark place he found. And I think, kind of getting that curtain pulled back for a guy who already can get pretty grim with his bars, it's just kind of appealing music, man, because not a lot of people can be this introspective. So whether it satisfies people in terms of a comeback, I think it really depends on the person. But we'll be hearing from more of Ameer, that's for sure, because this is definitely going to, I think, turn some heads, and he'll probably start to collaborate with people as more time passes. So I'm curious to see if we get any Brockhampton shots on the album. That I don't know if they would venture into that stuff on the next record, but the story ain't over.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch, and I hope Brockhampton doesn't engage with it, but I wouldn't put it past him, I guess I'll say. Why don't we move on to Brittany Howard, lead singer of the Alabama Shakes.
Or is she?
Well,
hiatus.
She's taking a break. Yeah. After
indefinite hiatus. Could it be done? Is it over?
Certainly potential. After Sound and Color dropped, I believe, in 2015.
It's been a while.
And they toured quite diligently after that. Last year, Brittany Howard told her other bandmates she needed some time, needed to kind of find herself in a sense. And she's a really interesting person. Identity-wise, she comes from a mother who's white, father who's black, raised in the South. So being mixed race, also identifying as queer. She's a really fascinating person identity-wise, and then it comes to her music and her influences and what she has, where she's taken the Alabama Shakes from. When they first came up on the scene with their self-titled album, I believe it was.
That was Dogs and what's it called? Oh shit! From 2012, it's like a half hour long.
Yeah,
it was like more blues rock.
Yeah,
it was more like Black Keys.
Yeah, hold on, I'm pulling it up here. I had the hit song "Hold On" it, which was this anthem that kind of called to the struggles of the modern person,
boys and
people
girls.
in current society. Yes, boys and girls. From 2012 to Sound and Color, which is this much more eclectic, funk and soul driven, acoustic / indie rock record.
It's very experimental.
Yeah, and it was just really fascinating. It's such a jump, and it really felt like Brittany was putting her staple onto the band. And then to listen to Jaime, this debut album, a year after she announced the hiatus with the band, just is really exciting, because not only does Brittany Howard have the type of voice that is distinct, but also so powerful and encapsulating of who she is as a person, I feel like. But she also just has this perspective on life at this point that I feel really makes this record and what she's trying to get across really, really engaging. How did you feel listening to Jaime?
Yeah, it's funny because Sound and Color actually kind of took me back when I heard it, just because it's, as you said, really has a lot of influences from all over the place, and is very experimental as a result. And I think it's kind of an album you kind of have to fall into and just kind of let it take you places, because it's hard to put it into any kind of box. And at times I didn't quite enjoy Brittany Howard's vocals on that album, whereas I thought on the first record, Boys and Girls, because that was, I guess, more traditional, more safe sound of a traditional Southern rock. I kind of understood that music more, and thus could process it better, you know. But having a little more space now, listening to Jaime, I think it is cool because you mentioned her voice, and obviously she's kind of the whole essence of the Alabama Shakes as an act, sure, right? Like the front woman, the creative force, the face, the sound, all that. And now we have her basically bringing all of that again. Like, this could have been an Alabama Shakes album, I suppose. It doesn't sound that different as a continuation of what they've been doing. But I guess the creative control that she required to make this is really the main reason why she wanted to break away. But sonically, you know, I think again, there's this has a lot of ups and downs, or bobs and weaves. This shit zags a lot, but because her voice is so distinct and she can do a lot with her voice, just when she's not being super showy, you know, it's not like she's a good singer, but it's not like an Ariana Grande of like 5 years ago, where she would just be like, look, listen to me sing really well with my great voice. Yeah. Yep. She never does that. And you just listen, like, I think you have like really nice headphones and listen to Jaime or Sounding Color for that regard. You just hear the intricacy of the production and the overall, I think, enterprise of the songcraft is what kind of stands out to me. I think 13th Century Metal towards the end of Jaime, I really liked, just because maybe because it didn't sound like much of the rest of the track list, but it was just kind of like a jam, you know. So it's impressive stuff. And I was just gonna ask you, is this the rock release of the year? And in terms of like expectations, things people were excited for, there hasn't been a whole lot of like marquee big name stuff. We've Raconteurs, Black Keys, but like, I mean, apologies to Big Thief's album next month, but like, is this like the biggest thing from a critical perspective, you know?
Critically, it might be. I think in terms of release, probably be Vampire Weekend in terms of I think the album's really grown on people, and commercially their tour is they're just huge right now.
Right, of course.
You know, I think they'd probably be the biggest release. Also, if Tame Impala ever does get an album out, which I was highly anticipating, and it just seems like they're just not doing it. Kevin Parker's like, nah, son. But right. Yeah, Brittany Howard, this might be. And the thing is, I feel like the energy leading up to this wasn't really what I expected. You know, I mean, I saw a lot of places like music places talking about it, but in terms of like people talking about their excitement for this record, I feel like it has just kind of snuck up, and people are like, oh, there's a Brittany Howard record.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. And I think that also speaks to, I mean, she's been in a couple other bands like Thunder Bitch and things like that, but
a country one as well.
Yeah. But when the band that you're most known for hasn't dropped a record in 4 years, and no matter how big you are, it's going to be hard to kind of, I think, capture that spotlight when you only have 2 other drops. Sound and Color is obviously an amazing record and well received, but she just doesn't have the reps yet, I think, for people to say Brittany Howard's dropping a record. Now, we were tuned into it. Obviously, we're a little bit more tuned in than the average music fan, but I hope this is an album people find, because I think songs like Stay High, I thought Goat Head, which you know, talked about a lot of racial, I asked a lot of racial questions and rhetorical questions around race and hatred in the country. I think those are songs that are just so different, but just mesmerizing their own way. And you mentioned 13th Century Metal, which I think is actually her best like vocal performance on it. And it's not even her singing. It's her doing a spoken word song. And I think just the way that she delivers the lines and that that song is produced. It's basically like this crazy jam session, this one take jam session where like the drums are just like driving the whole entire song, and it's really this amazing message about like doing your best every day to like push love forward and beat hate. It just feels like it encapsulates everything that she's trying to say, and I love this whole record. So it's definitely, I mean, this will be on my top 10 at the end of the year for sure. Starting to piece that together.
Right.
A question for you, actually, now that we're talking top 10s, what rock record do you think would be closest to your top 10?
Ooh, good one. I was just going through everything we had talked about. Better Living Community Center, Tool, Bon Iver, if you count him.
Yeah, Bon Iver.
Sharon Van Etten, a little bit. Hasn't been a whole lot we've talked about, though, because what is closest? I don't know, man. Bon Iver was my favorite Bon Iver album.
Lewis?
Jenny Lewis? No, probably not for me.
Vampire Weekend?
I like Sunflower.
You do like Sunflower.
Raconteurs, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Black Keys. Probably those two guys.
Yeah.
Black Midi.
Cool. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's
with a purpose.
Yeah, I think it's probably those three.
Yeah, the State of Rock, go back to that.
Not
YouTube
the National,
video.
That's for sure.
Yeah, the National aren't really your bag, I feel.
Certainly not.
But yeah, rock right now just continues to move into a state of further and further obscurity. Even thinking about the releases of the last couple of years, like the Arctic Monkeys release was a bit disappointing.
Foo Fighters, same thing.
Yeah, so just not a lot out there right now, rock wise, at least from like the legacy bands that are really capturing people. Maybe we should give that Springsteen country album a listen.
I mean, February 21st, we get another album from the 1975, a group that is well known for making traditional rock music. So, fear not.
On your best song list last year, right?
Love It If We Made It? Did it make it?
I think so.
It did. I think it made it.
I think it made it. And I'd love it if we made it to the next segment, talking Ad Astra. Quickly, just want to get your thoughts. This might catch you off guard a little bit. There's some news leaking about the newest Batman movie. Jonah Hill rumored to be the villain, and Jeffrey Wright playing Commissioner Gordon. Quick thoughts.
I mean, Jeffrey Wright's a fucking talent.
Yeah.
That's a nice fit. I like that fit a lot. Again, clearly separating themselves further and further from the Ben Affleck iteration, Jeremy Irons, who I thought was fine for what he had to do. Just throwing that all away. That's cool. Yeah, this is interesting. So this is from Variety. Jonah Hill eyed for secret role opposite Arpats. I mean, Jonah, who I'm a huge fan of, talent generally. We talk about mid-90s directorial debut, but we know he's a screen talent first. Is he going to be the Penguin?
He's not fat Jonah Hill anymore.
He's not fat. He could really be anybody.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Not Black Mask, we figure, because that's who Ewan McGregor's playing in Birds of Prey. He's hearing Jonah Hill might be playing the Riddler. How about that?
I like
that's cool.
I was going to say, it has to be something a little more psychological. I was thinking maybe Scarecrow or the Riddler makes a lot of sense, because especially after he was in that Netflix show last year. I'm blanking on the name.
Clayface. I know Clayface could be a cool under the radar pick. I mean, I trust Matt Reeves with this, because DC has shown over the last few years that they will let their directors cook and do what they want. And that means it's not as congruent as the MCU, but frankly, I don't need a second MCU. I like something a little different. We're excited to talk about the Joker soon enough. That's not even connected to this at all. Cool. So, yeah, it sounds like it's a developing story, but I'm with it.
I'm definitely with it. Moving on to Ad Astra, though. James Gray, last movie we reviewed by him, The Lost City of Z. A movie we both really liked.
Yeah, 2017.
Ad Astra seems to is by far his biggest movie. Made 19 million at the box office this weekend domestically. Pretty interesting film. There was a lot of buzz around this. It was being pumped on the NFL weekend shows and things like that, and really this drive. It's funny that a movie like this was being marketed to these NFL, like the typical NFL fans, because I don't know if this is the type of movie a typical NFL fan would go and leave super jazzed about.
The Martian, this is not.
Yeah, certainly not. I mean, I think it's easy to think, oh, it's going to be something like The Martian or Interstellar, but no, this is a much more interesting film in terms of the themes and the questions it asks. I think about humanity, about relationships, but maybe a place to start is, did you like Ad Astra, Dave?
Fuck yeah, dude. Oh my god.
I've seen mixed replies. It only has like a 48% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, again, I think that's in line with expectations. I think a lot of people are seeing this as their first James Gray movie, and expecting a Gravity or a Martian, as we said, but it's not that. And something this cerebral is inherently not going to be for everyone, whether it's in space or on the ground. But I mean, shit, it's kind of in tandem now for me with High Life, another cerebral space film with Robert Pattinson. It also involves reporting to a narrative voice that speaks to you, which is kind of a funny connection. But yeah, this is in my top 5 for sure. I'm just still trying to sort where exactly it would rank. That'll certainly change. But yeah, I was pretty blown away. I thought the movie was really effective, and I think it explores a lot, which we'll continue to talk about, but also has a slew of stellar visuals, a lot of set pieces, which are pretty rare, or not a lot, but a fair amount of set pieces, certainly more than you expect from James Gray movie, and also amazing performances. I think Brad has just concluded a stellar year for him. He hasn't acted in 2 films the same year in a long ass time, and between Roy and Cliff Booth, this is definitely one of his best years, obviously. But Ruth Negga in a small role on Mars doesn't have a whole lot of time. I think she really leaves an impact. And of course, Tommy Lee Jones actually gives, I think, a really committed performance, which is nice to see, considering, he's been up there in age. He's been collecting some checks recently, but I really liked him as well. And even small role for Donald Sutherland. I thought he was fantastic. Another guy who I haven't seen try and attempt a whole lot recently in his older age. But yeah, in short, huge fan. What did you think?
Yeah, I really liked this film. And I think my expectations going in and what it ended up being made it a little bit harder to sit with at first. But the more I sat with it, the more I felt like this was a movie that could have been made by Barry Jenkins. I think that's really what I really liked about it. The coloring, the way that the scenes were shot. The one image I think that sticks in my mind the most is there's this scene, and I can't remember exactly when it was in the movie, but it shows like Brad Pitt with his helmet off and the space costume, and it's like this yellow light that like slowly like fades up to like blackness like right above him, and like just the way that's shot, I'm like, this is one of the most gorgeously lighted, colored film movies of the year by far. And I think as a piece of art, it's really good. I think as a story, it's a little up and down, only in terms of there are some points where there's not much going on. You're kind of just sitting with either what just happened, looking forward to whatever's happening next, and it can feel a little dull at points. But overall, I thought Brad Pitt was phenomenal. Maybe some of the most emotionally engaging work I can remember Brad Pitt doing, which is, I think, pretty amazing to say at this point in his career, that he's still got more to show us. And that scene where he's talking to the microphone and goes off script is just, I mean, that to steal from another movie he was in, that might be some of the best acting I've ever seen. So some good shit right there.
Yeah, I think everything on Mars was awesome. Production design too was really great there. Just that orange audio booth looked awesome. But even when Ruth Negga comes into the room And the way she's in the middle of the frame, the doors closed behind her, it's perfectly centered, looks awesome. And even leading up to before that, everything on the moon, having a industrialized, commercialized moon in the near future could have been really hokey or gimmicky, but it's not. It's kind of another subtle comment by Gray about, what like the throwaway line from Roy about how it's like the moon's just like Earth. It's nothing's changed. We destroy everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go from that to this, I think, fucking really visceral chase scene on the rovers as he's going to the dark side of the moon.
Yeah,
when they're shooting these like pressure guns. Not totally sure exactly what kind of ammunition was going on there. Doesn't matter. It looked great.
It was amazing
awesome
to see the set pieces that really capture you. Whether it's right from the get go, Roy falling off the satellite as it's going through the surge.
God. What a thrilling opening!
Yeah, or going to the space rover chase, or the rescue mission on the SOS ship with the apes, or even when he finally finds his dad. There's like barely any music behind those, and the fact that they were able to make this movie as engaging as it was, with how minimal it was in terms of sound and music to kind of drive that emotion, was just really, I thought, phenomenal and impressive in terms of filmmaking. Going back to what you were just talking about in terms of like the moon thing, it's got me thinking about a piece of like a running thing throughout the film that I thought was an interesting commentary on maybe modern society or modern mental health, but how they kept using the psychological checks as a way of almost like controlling Roy. And when he finally starts to when he's like going against what they want him to do, he's failing the psychological checks all of a sudden, but when he's openly talking about like, what's the purpose of life? Like, I'm so alone. Like, I hate all this. They're like, you pass your psychological check. And it's like it's a pretty interesting and thought provoking piece of it that I think adds a lot to Roy as a character, but also kind of the state of the world at that point.
Right. And honestly, it's like the closest analog to this movie is First Man, which is based off obviously real events, but both movies are very introspective with their lead characters in terms of like processing like hero myths. And I think in Ad Astra, it's almost doubled up because you have this guy who's compartmentalizing everything about his life, and we learn that and you know that about him. Then once the plot actually advances and things change, and suddenly he can't do the one thing we've been told is his like superpower, right? It works really well. And I think the overall like comments about like motivation and like finding purpose, whether you're well known or not, and then I guess processing when things let you down. In this case, the knowledge of the true nature of your father in this movie. I think it all really lands for me. It's just really funny because, man, you mentioned like the football advertising. It seems like some of the antagonism towards the film is like calling it just another bro space movie, which just doesn't make any sense to me because this, as you said, this is the movie that bros won't finish because it's too dull for them, right? Like I don't understand how you can watch that and have that be your takeaway. I think it's fantastic character work, and it kind of ends quickly like most great movies, but I think most people that are liking the movie say that it's sticking with them. They're thinking about it a lot after seeing it, which I think is kind of a testament to just how much the movie's attempting to explore with its characters. So I think it's awesome.
What were the themes that you are left thinking about or sitting with most since you saw it?
Yeah, I think like the whole aspect of the hero and how Tommy Lee Jones is someone who the government or NASA, whatever, secretly would disavow, doesn't support, but is propped up and lied about for years for the sake of their own propaganda, success, whatever, right? And then having Pitt, Roy, his son, come up in that shadow and be everything they want. I saw someone describe Roy's initial character as a advertisement for the Space Force.
Mm-hmm.
He's everything you would want in that, right? But then having that be deconstructed as Roy basically goes on this journey alone to kind of learn for himself that everything he's been told is not true. I found that really effective. And I mean, the fathers and sons aspect of it all, I know that probably lands better for people that are actually fathers or sons, I imagine. But I don't know. I thought it was really warm, and the emotional beats that Roy has towards the end that really landed for me. So like I said, I think it's a really effective movie.
Yeah, I think the father and son relationship obviously hits home. Obviously, if you're a father and son, but beyond that, I think the ideas of like loneliness and vulnerability are probably what I'm sitting with most. Just in terms of you see Roy at some of the most crucial moments, like have small flashes back to Liv Tyler, right? Who also, for not getting to say anything in the film except for like I'm leaving or something like that. I remember her probably more than almost any other of the bit people in the film. Like I think about Liv Tyler scenes more than I think about Donald Sutherland scenes from the movie. Because I think it just means so much more to who Roy as a character is, and what he's really grappling with is this like desire to be this like perfect space astronaut, a space explorer, live up to what his dad wants, or dad was, and then what he has to sacrifice to get it. But what he really wants is just to be seen and understood and accepted by this person who he's pushing away. And it just really just a really thought-provoking film. I think there's so much you can take away and so many ways to see it. I'd really recommend if you enjoy auteur films and films that are just moving and thought-provoking, go see Ad Astra. I have a feeling we'll definitely be talking about it for a couple of Oscar nominations. Do you think Pitt will earn a nomination for this role?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Obviously, he'd be going up for lead actor with Ad Astra and supporting for Hollywood. He's in the mix. I think a Cliff Booth nomination's probably more likely. This is a Fox movie that Disney inherited. It was initially slated to come out in May. I think this is a much better time for it to come out, personally, because this is not a summer movie. But will Disney and Fox campaign for it? It's not a Fox Searchlight movie. They already have their own Oscar expertise. Tough to say. To his credit, Pitt did say last week to, I think, IndieWire, that he doesn't plan to campaign for either performance, which some people read as a admission that he is looking to get one of those. That would be nice. I don't know. I'd say he probably doesn't get nominated for this. This movie's probably going to be a little underseen, which I think is kind of going to hurt against it. Like, it's grossed $45 million worldwide, but the budget was $80 before marketing. It is an expensive movie. That might get held against it. Tough to say. This is one of those movies as an adult drama that Disney inherited. It would be nice if more people would support this movie in the theater to show that there is still an audience for adult dramas. Again, this is still about space and the future and stuff, but if you want Disney to actually finance those movies once the Fox movies are gone, Astra probably shouldn't lose $30 million. So let's see.
No, I completely agree. I would love to see Pitt get the nomination. Obviously, without seeing the other films that will be up for contention yet, but I think Cliff Booth seems more like he'll get the nomination for it. People have really taken a lot from that performance, which is also a pretty subdued Pitt performance in terms of what he gets to say. So doing a lot with not a ton to go off of, which is just speaks to his quality. And his career as an actor is really interesting at this point, just thinking about how he kind of came up as like this pretty face and like sex symbol, turned into this mega star with Aniston and Jolie and everything with that. And now it's moved into this new phase of his career where he's this awesome actor. I love that scene or that interview where he's doing with Margot Robbie and he's talking about or she says she hasn't seen Midnight in Paris.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, my friend, you must see it," or something like that. The way he says it, just like major Brad Pitt vibes this year. So, I'd love to see it. James Gray, I also would like to see get a nomination, but I don't know if this will be it for him or not. But definitely moving in the right direction.
Upon refreshing my memory of who's in the mix, I mean, we have Leo, Adam Driver, Marriage Story. Feels like a lock at this point. We have Damon or Bale in Ford versus Ferrari, depending on how they run that. Joaquin, Sandler, Banderas, Price. Yeah,
and Sandler, I think.
Ruffalo, De Niro, Ed Norton. There's a ton of hitters in this category. So yeah. I think Pitt will probably be happy with just for Cliff, which I think is very likely.
Oscars are gonna be fun this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Go see Ad Astra. What are we watching next week, Dave, or listening to?
So we'll be seeing Judy, the Renee Zellweger vehicle. Oscar buzz for that performance about the late life of Judy Garland. And perhaps Jesus is King, the new Kanye LP, is out. Who the fuck knows if that's actually a thing. If it is, we'll be there. Young M.A., though, is dropping her album, her debut album, 2 years later. She's been slow cooking this. I'm excited to see that. One of the best bar-for-bar New York rappers there is. And then The Politician's dropping on Netflix. That's the first of the Ryan Murphy Netflix shows, starring Ben Platt. We'll talk about that probably in a week or two. And then, I mean, Sturgill Simpson's dropping, if that interests you.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so that's the main focus for now. More to come, you assume?
Absolutely. And go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to find all the ways to catch us as we talk all that next week. Also go to YouTube and follow us there and give us a 5-star rating review on iTunes. We'll see you next week.